Every single instance of a gem poofing and losing their physical form on Steven Universe has very weirdly always been a direct result of suffering through extreme physical trauma or extreme emotional trauma in the case of Spinel after she found out that Pink Diamond was gone and most likely wasn't ever going to be coming back at the very beginning of a Steven Universe movie.
I can't believe Mom did that to you. Actually, I can totally believe it.
Also, based on Eyeball's bold claim during the season 3 episode titled Back to the Moon, that she almost pooped from the excitement of learning that she was tasked with a once-in-a-lifetime mission of retrieving Jasper from the Earth.
When I found out this mission was to look for you, I nearly dissipated my form!
It seems like gems can actually manage to poof themselves after experiencing extreme levels of both negative and positive emotions.
This is all very nice, but it doesn't solve the mystery.
But yeah, these details surrounding the reality of poofing completely stands out in particular because of the fact that it's been confirmed by the creator of the series, being Rebecca Sugar, along with the rest of the Croniverse on multiple different occasions, that some gems are more than capable of influencing their surroundings, performing their duties, and even defending themselves effectively in a fight without ever actually needing to leave their gemstones, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Alright, so I can completely understand why questions like where do gems actually go after death and can gems choose to poof and return to their gemstones on their own without being forced to suffer through excessive levels of trauma might seem like a couple of fairly straightforward and easy to answer questions, but based on everything that we learn about the complex anatomy of gems and the strange magical dimensions that they're all connected to for some reason, then I'm honestly convinced that both of these questions are almost impossible for us to be able to answer even with the 2 shows, 2 fully fledged art books, and an entire movie's worth of knowledge that we currently have at our disposal. Almost. Jasper is the first and only gem who has gotten shattered in a fight on screen, and her incredibly short time spent in pieces during the Steven Universe Future episode titled Fragments still surprisingly gave us a ton of valuable information to work with when it comes to gathering evidence in order for us to attempt to answer our 2 big questions.
You shattered me. Jasper, I'm so sorry. I should have stopped. I just wasn't thinking.
But you know, the only problem is that most of that valuable information seems to directly conflict with a couple of details that we were already told about shattered gems in the past.
You're right, Jasper. I have been holding back.
After being brought to the temple and getting revived by our boy Steven, Jasper would noticeably wake up from a shattered state in a panic while staring up at the ceiling.
What?
Almost as if she didn't experience any form of consciousness or thoughts at all when she was shattered, which implies that similarly to being poofed and kept in a bubble, shattering for a gem is similar to an indefinite pause or blacking out for us lowly humans.
That's different.
Are they cared for in the stasis of the bubble? As long as they're bubbled, they can't hurt anyone, and they won't suffer. It's what Rose wanted.
Bismuth was poofed and kept in a bubble for over 5,000 years after fighting against Rose Quartz over their conflicting war tactics.
Liar! Don't play games with me, Rose. We were right here. I offered you the secret to victory and you refused.
Even though Rose Quartz would eventually end up stealing Bismuth's core idea anyway.
I really thought all of our problems would disappear if we could just shatter a diamond. Guess she ended up taking my advice.
But yeah, Bismuth would accidentally be freed from Rosie's bubble by our boy Stephen, and it was like she was right back inside of the forge battling against her old twisted leader like no time had passed. This also lines up with every other time that we'd get the chance to see a gem get poofed and then reform.
Everything's gonna be fine.
Alright, so Steven and the Crystal Gems was an official 4-issue comic book series that was written and then put together by Rebecca Sugar and the rest of the Croniverse themselves, which gave us the surprisingly dark story of the single most overpowered gem in the entire series being none other than Glass Ghost. And you should definitely check out this video next because it's basically just a really condensed summary and review of the storyline. But anyway, during the second comic issue, after Steven would begin to lose a ton of sleep as a result of his newly found belief in the Glass Ghost, host, Pearl, being the mom that she is at heart, steps in and reassures Steven that every gem who has ever emerged will immediately lose their consciousness the moment that they are shattered, adding a ton of weight to the idea of there being nothing for gems at all after death. This idea of gems literally being unable to be conscious in a shattered state and maybe even a simple Poof state gets reinforced further in the following episode of Steven Universe Future titled Homeward Bound, when Yellow Diamond herself would choose to begin to work on reversing all of her infamous gem experiments. Speaking about Yellow Diamond's gem experiments, as I was alluding to earlier, Steven Universe has also given us a ton of compelling and conflicting evidence that gems are 100% able to retain a high level of consciousness even after getting shattered. I mean, think back to the early season 1 episode titled Together Breakfast when we'd get the chance to see this mysterious scroll.
Business? Like what?
I have to burn this.
While this was never explicitly confirmed, the mysterious whispering scroll that was exclusive to this episode was most likely made using crushed up gem shards. And if this is true, then that would mean that a gem is not only still able to retain a competent level of consciousness after getting shattered, but also after literally being vaporized into smoke as well.
Steven, go!
Okay, wanna meet in the kitchen?
The unique possession abilities of the Evil Spirit Scroll lines up perfectly with the abilities that we'd see for ourselves from the shards of shattered gems in another early season 1 episode titled Fribo. The gem shards that were being cared for by Pearl in this episode were undoubtedly still alive and conscious. This detail was especially clear whenever they'd managed to come into contact with something that they were able to possess. Steven would have a horrifying encounter with another seriously overpowered gem that we'd later learn was called White Topaz during the season 1 episode titled Horror Club. And the major problem with this revelation is that it just outright confirms that gems, or at least some gems, are fully capable of functioning without even needing to take on a physical form. Again, White Topaz now has a canonical uncorrupted physical form which was sketched out for us by Rebecca Sugar herself inside of the official Steven Universe End of an Era art book, and White Topaz naturally looks very similar to Topaz. I mean, even if we choose to completely ignore White Topaz's ability to function as a singular gem shard without needing to take on a physical form, along with the Evil Spirit Scroll and Blue Gem Shard's ability to possess inanimate objects long after getting shattered, because of the notable fact that these kinds of occurrences wouldn't really be shown on the show at all after season 1, then we still can't ignore the existence of Yellow Diamond's darkest gem experiment, being the cluster itself. Steven was insanely able to project himself into the mind of the cluster with his astral powers and has used this ability on multiple different occasions. I mean, the cluster's whole deal originally was that it wanted to take on a physical form, meaning that each and every gem shard that was used to create the cluster was undeniably able to think for itself, and to such a strong extent in fact that Steven was literally able to convince them to bubble each other during the climax of the season 3 episode titled Gem Drill. Based on all of the evidence, even though some of them seem to conflict with each other like I mentioned, I'm thinking that while there might not be an afterlife for the gems per se, they can definitely still be ghosts in their own ways. And that honestly makes sense because we know that all gems are linked to other worlds and dimensions that can only be sensed by the diamonds. Either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this discussion, and I'm really hoping that Last of Us Stars will be able to show us more of the supernatural side of this universe, because I think that it's another very strong contender to get revealed as being one of the darkest secrets of a fallen gem empire.